So my quilt is pretty much completely pieced. I'm now going to take and press it really well one last time before I square it up. While you're squaring up, you have some options. I have been known to take a quilt that's a little wider and cut it into thirds, and I've given those as gifts to people and kept one for myself, of course. But you don't have to. You can also just square it up and live with it however you'd like. Squaring it up involves using a rotary cutter and a cutting board so that you can get the closest cutting edges you can. I may not want to have my quilt this wide, so I'm thinking I might cut it down a little bit. I'm not quite sure. We'll see once it's all square this way first. The other thing I would recommend doing is making sure that you have the horizon line, if it is supposed to be straight on one of the inch markings on your cutting board, because that will be an important visual demarcation. So that's one. Let me see what I can do with the other side now. Okay, just to basically, and then take this here, I should probably flip that over, it might make it a little bit easier. So, there we go, there we go. And let me see what we have here while I'm there. This is also nice because it cuts down on all of the extra threads that you have, which is really great. It would be wonderful if my cutter worked better, but it doesn't ever. So this is essentially what we have. At this point, I would probably come and start trimming back here a little bit, inch to an inch, half inch, something like that. Anything that's a little bit longer than it really needs to be, just to cut down on the bulk. Because while you're quilting, you don't want to have all those fabrics to go through. So I figure if I trim everything down a little bit, I'm making it much more workable. And then once I've done that, I will then take the top and bottom and work with those and cut those down a little too. Okay, square those up. Okay, so now we've got that done. And I have to see how my top looks. My bottom is probably more important even than my top, but you will see. So we put this on 10, this on 13. There we go. So top looks okay. Bottom definitely needs to be trimmed. Remember, I said to try and keep your horizon line away from the center if you can. Okay, I may want to cut off just a hair more of this one. This is now getting into the less fun part of the quilting process, but it's okay. So as I had told you in the directions, it's probably best to audition your border fabrics as you're choosing your fabrics. And this one was easy for me somehow. I didn't have 1,000 border fabric possibilities. This one here is one I'd like to use for a small inner border. Notice it picks up on a lot of the colors that are in the quilt. And this one here will be my slightly wider outer border. There is some similarity. I don't necessarily always suggest that you use the similar fabric like this, but I figured this time these are big bubbles. These are kind of organized bubbles, so we're okay with that. I'm going to cut this one at about 1 inch, maybe 7/8 of an inch, and then we'll sew each at 1/4 inch. So it'll be a half inch or 3/8 of an inch, and that's probably about what I'd like. And this one here, I'll probably cut it about 2.5 inches so that we have a little bit of room to play with. So let's just, when we come back, I'll have the whole quilt finished, okay? Quilt top. Okay, so this is the finished quilt top. We have the inner border. It's about 3/8 of an inch wide, and this one's about 2 inches. It may get to be a little narrower, but not much, I don't think. One thing I didn't mention, I have my machine at about 2 1/4 when I'm doing the top stitching, and I leave it at that when I'm going to be doing the quilting. To do the quilting in this, I would probably, again, change thread colors quite frequently. And here I'd use blue. And here I would probably do a quilt stitch that starts on the edge, goes in, turns around, and goes in again and turns around, just to make 2 little points. I try to be as free-flowing as I can in the quilting. And I try to change thread color to match whatever fabric I'm working on. I don't tend to quilt the skies very much because I find that that takes away from the beauty of them, whether they are Mickey Lawler skies or whether they're just regular fabrics. I just really like to leave my skies unquilted, but that would be your choice. If you wanted to quilt them, you could. Then I go around and I quilt in the ditch once here in the inside border and once here in the inside of the outer border, and then I would probably bind it with something slightly darker, maybe even something like this one here, like this bottom fabric that I used in the quilt. And that's pretty much it. So I hope you enjoy doing these.